years. That good? Okay.
People on Zoom unfortunately didn't hear you because we forgot to click back on.
Okay. That's a pity. And this isn't working now, Paddy. Okay. Right. Now, I'm not going into detail on this, but effectively what we are getting tonight is an extended Wikipedia, mainly based on whatever is in the public domain, together with some great help that I've received from both the Tubridy and the Lawler families. So we start with the basic family structure of the Tubridys. The Tubridys were based in Ballyket. The McGraths were from Iasta. The family of Patrick Francis Tubridy moved from Ballyket to Henry Street. Patrick Francis married his Henry Street neighbour Bridget Brew in 1916 and set up his veterinary practice in Moore Street. Michael Jarrett was one of 10 children, and he was 7 years old when his mother died in 1931. Here we see the Henry Street census, and the second line, you can see Patrick Francis, 29 years of age, and at the time, the household was being headed by Catherine Tubridy. And here we have the Tubridy Brew marriage on November, I think it's the 7th, 1916, and he's shown as a veterinary surgeon. They're both in Henry Street. Mortimer Tubridy and William Brew were the witnesses, and the father is the rank and profession of father is merchant. Here we have, this is Mrs. Purtle's house, which she always keeps magnificently, and that was the Tubridy residence in Moore Street. So now we'll talk briefly about the Kilrush Shamrocks. Kilrush Shamrocks GAA Club was founded in 1886 under the patronage of Reverend Dr. Dinan PP. Prior to 1900, the club was known as the Shannon Sweepers. Fiercely competitive street leagues provided the basis for a first senior county championship title in 1902. Michael, shown as Mick Tubridy, is featured in photographs with the Shamrocks, and these are on display at the GAA clubhouse. So Captain Michael Tubridy from Moore Street won an All-Ireland with Jack Lynch in 1945. The Clare County involvement, Michael Tubridy was a member of the 1940 Clare minor team, who were defeated by Kerry in the Munster Minor Football Championship at Tralee. He again played for Clare against Kerry in the opening round of the 1942 Munster Senior Final Championship and scored 2 points in a 308 to 103 defeat at Cusack Park in Ennis. So this is how he came to be playing for Cork. Lieutenant Michael Mick Tubridy was stationed in Ballincollig in Cork in 1945. He was a member of the Collins Army Club in Cork. In 1945, he declared for Cork. The last time that Cork had won an All-Ireland football final was on the 14th of January in 1912, when they won the delayed 1911 title at Jones's Road with a score of Cork 6-6 to Antrim's 1-2. And we come now to the Munster final of 1945. That was Cork against Kerry. The game was played on the 8th of July 1945 in Fitzgerald Stadium to Killarney with an attendance of 7,384. Incredibly, this Munster final was Michael Tubridy's debut appearance for Cork. He's not listed as having contributed to the score sheet, and the final scoreline was Cork 111 to the Kingdoms 1-6. We move on then to the All-Ireland Senior Championship football semi-final, and that was on the 12th of August 1945. Cork played Galway in Croke Park before an attendance of 33,336. Now the quotations are from newspaper reports. Cork began the second half in great fashion as the army duo of Eamon Young and Mick Tubridy pointed in the opening minutes. The Army man Mick Tubridy pointed after a fine run, but the score was disallowed. And the final score was Cork 212 to 2-8 for Galway. Here we see two images from the 1945 All-Ireland. To the left is the Cork Cavan programme, and to the right you can see a blow-up of Lieutenant M. Tubridy representing the Army Club, playing for Cork with the Army Club. So here are some facts regarding the 1945 game. Cork had 2 Army personnel on the team who were not Cork natives. Lieutenant Tubridy was a Clareman, and Sergeant Jim Cronin was a native of Milltown, County Kerry. He was stationed at Spike Island and declared for Cork. The match was played on the 23rd of September 1945 at Croke Park, with what was described as a bumper attendance of 67,329, and 5 bands entertained the throng. Again, now these are newspaper reports. Derry Beckett put Mick Tubridy through, and he finished to the back of the Cavan net after 5 minutes of play. Derry Beckett pointed from a free, and the Leesiders went further ahead as Mick Tubridy pointed. Mick Tubridy cut through the Cavan defence for his second point in the 29th minute of the first half. And Beckett and Tubridy were the top scorers with 1-2 each. And there is a picture of the 1945 All-Ireland champions. 15 from the right is Captain Michael Tubridy. And again, 15 from the right is Jack Lynch, later Taoiseach. So as I mentioned, the future Taoiseach, Jack Lynch, was on the 1945 team. He scored a point during the game. And on this occasion, Jack Lynch earned his 5th consecutive All-Ireland medal. His 4 previous medals were from 1941 to 1944 with the Cork Hurlers. Michael Tubridy's final GAA outing. Michael Tubridy played representing Cork in the 1946 Interprovincial Railway Cup. Munster beat Leinster 3-5 to 1-9. And if memory serves me rightly, the finals of these games were always on St. Patrick's Day. Tubridy was not the only West Clare man on the Munster team. Paddy Power from Quilty, a Kilmurray-Ibricken club member, represented Clare on the Munster team. The presence of Clare footballers representing Munster was rare, so this was a unique double. But there was an earlier instance where another West Clare man, Captain John Burke, another Army man as well from Tullycrine, he was a star midfielder on the Galway team, which defeated Kerry in the 1938 All-Ireland final replay. So now we move on to his show jumping career. In 1946, forgive me now for moving in a little bit to read this, Lieutenant M.J. Tubridy, a native of Clare and a prominent member of the Cork football team, who took All-Ireland honours last year, received premier laurels in winning the International Jumping Championship on the Army Horse Kilkenny. Lieutenant Tubridy had a faultless first round in this competition in contest with the Swedish horse Fanfare and Miss Iris Kellett's Dusky, who had a fault each in this round. When the horses were sent away for a second time, Lieutenant Tubridy rode Kilkenny around perfectly to win the trophy. Here we have the agricultural show in Ennis on the 15th of August, 1946. Lieutenant Tubridy, who is a native of Kilrush, won the special open jumping event on Kilkenny by a faultless display, and then brought Antrim Glens into second place with another faultless round. And here is a note of the death of their father, Patrick Tubridy. Mr. Patrick F. Tubridy, Kilrush, who has died, and this is 1947, owned one of the largest greyhound kennels in the country. His successes included the Derby, Oaks, International, and Kingdom Cups. He was father of Lieutenant M.J. Tubridy, Irish Army jumping team. And here we have Mick Tubridy. He is on the right, and you can see here that he was involved and continued the family interest in greyhounds. Here we have a photograph of Michael, Gerard, William, and Mary, and I'm presuming it was probably taken in Moore Street. For the London Horse Show on July 1929, it says here, the quiet, easy way Brewery tackled his fences aroused much favourable comment. He was the only horse to do a clear round in Section A, and in the final section was again the only one to go clear. Captain Tubridy said that much of the credit for this horse's success goes to Captain P. Needham, who trained him. Now we move to Pennsylvania, October 1949. Captain M. Tubridy, riding Brewery, won the president of the show's perpetual trophy for Ireland on the final day of the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania Horse Show. Then we move in November 1949 to New York. And in the Madison Square Garden, Captain Tubridy completed the difficult 12-barrier course in 46.4 seconds to take the first prize of $300, about 107 pounds. And here we have, again, November 1949. This shows congratulations for Captain Tubridy. And finally, it's lovely to see this reference to a Kilrush man that many of us knew. The Clare County Council, congratulations. The team, said Mr. Gerald Griffin, had proved one of the best ambassadors the country has ever sent abroad. So here's just simply a photograph of what was headlined as preparations for Nice and Rome. And we have now triumphed in Nice. Captain Tubridy on Brewery, with only 4 penalty points in 1 minute, 39.1.5 seconds, won the prize for the best individual effort in the event. On Saturday, Captain Tubridy, riding Kinsale, jumped into second place in the Prix de Boucal competition. Move on then to Rome, and we saw he'd been training for Nice and Rome. Ireland had the distinction of being the first nation to have her national anthem played at Rome Horse Show when Captain M.G. Tubridy won the opening event, the Esquilino Trophy, on Saturday. I just included this because we don't know whether or not the barrier stayed up or stayed down, so I was asking the question, is it a fault or no fault? Here we see a presentation from Taoiseach, then Taoiseach Eamon de Valera. I don't know exactly what the trophy is, and there wasn't a time given. This is a still from a Pat Unusual reading, and the narrator described Captain Tubridy as Captain Tubridy with the 1945 Aga Khan trophy at the RDS. And I do think that the lovely man with the smile on the face there is Captain Tubridy. Here's a London win in 1951. Captain M. Tubridy riding Kinsale to victory yesterday in the Jarrocka Stakes, the first international competition at London Horse Show. Again, at the RDS in 1953, when Captain Tubridy had completed the course, it became clear that he had the first faultless round. A tremendous burst of cheering and applause reverberated throughout the jumping enclosure, and it was some moments before the judge could make his voice heard over the loudspeaker system. And you'll notice the jump from 51 to 53. Apparently, he was injured for most of 52. And we now come to his retirement from the Irish Army. Captain M. Tubridy of the Irish Army jumping team will retire from the Army on January 28th to take up the post of manager of Mr. J. McGrath's Trimbledon Stud Trim. Again, here's the reference Captain Tubridy, who has won many cups for Ireland, does not intend to retire from the jumping arena. And unfortunately, I can't read the rest of it, but he did say that I intend to keeping it up as much as ever. High hopes here. Captain Tubridy will go on riding, but Captain Tubridy is by no means finished with the show jumping. He's leaving the army with his great ambition unfulfilled, to win the King's Cup at London's White City. Twice he was beaten in a jump-off for the trophy, on each occasion by Olympic champion Colonel Harry Llewellyn. So he intends to go on trying for the cup, and his first task is to find a horse to train and ride in first-class competition. There is one more ambition that the captain cherishes: to win an Olympic medal for Ireland. Again, there's a reference to an injury put Captain Tubridy out of competitions in 1952, but in 1953, he very nearly carried off the King George V Cup at Haringey on Red Castle. And now we come, unfortunately, to the 15th of April 1954, where the headline is Captain Tubridy injured. Captain Michael Tubridy, well-known ex-member of the Irish Army jumping team, who now trains for Mr. Joe McGrath, was in a serious condition at St. Lawrence's Hospital last night as a result of a riding accident. And I've described his lateral as it was, a tragic loss. He had been riding a young horse, which he had recently purchased for his own use. Later, employees of the farm found him lying unconscious in a field. The horse was in the same field. In the inquest reports, the coroner said, "What exactly happened? I think it's impossible to say. The evidence is not very helpful. We can follow the movements of the captain up to a point, but beyond that, nothing definite is known." Here was a US tribute to the late Captain Tubridy. The Pennsylvania National Horse Association has voted to dedicate the 1954 show to the late Captain Michael Tubridy. And here is a brief summary of his early years. Michael Tubridy, third son of the late Patrick Tubridy, who lived in Moore Street, Kilrush, was one of a family of 9, in fact it's 10, the eldest of which was only 14 years of age when their mother died. Those of my generation, and those who will still survive from the preceding one, will remember the 5 little Tubridy boys who walked hand in hand beside their father behind the hearse bearing their mother's coffin. Kilrush looked on and wept unabashed. But death is a natural thing, even when it comes prematurely. And gradually the young Tubridy family, accommodated to their altered circumstances, looking to a father who spared nothing to give them to his family, the love and understanding and guidance they needed, and to their eldest sister Mary, who, as she grew to young womanhood, assumed the role of mother to them all. To his eternal credit, it must be said that Tubridy Senior succeeded in maintaining discipline and in preserving the love and respect of a big family all through their formative years. This is a congratulatory telegram that came to Moore Street the first time that Captain Tubridy won something. It says here he was but 23 years of age when he won this, the first of many victories of his short career. What a joy this victory must have been to his family is best illustrated by the telegram I came across while doing some research for this article. It was hidden among many other messages of goodwill in a fabulous scrapbook preserved by his widow Dorothy. It read, "Congratulations, Michael. You were wonderful, Daddy and Mammy." Now, the reference to Michael Tubridy's widow Dorothy brings us to the next story in the lives of this remarkable couple. Here is a photographic portrait of Dorothy Lawler as she then was. So, and how the two stories knitted together. Dot's sister was an Aer Lingus air hostess. Parents and siblings were entitled to concessionary travel with IATA Airlines at the time. Dot followed the show jumping circuit. She became firm friends with Ethel Shackle due to their mutual interest in show jumping. That interest especially included the dancingly handsome show jumper from Ireland in the green uniform of the Irish Army, who was participating in a competition in Madison Square Garden, New York. They devised a plan. This was the plan. They went to the stables in Madison Square Gardens. They introduced themselves as journalists from a leading New York daily. They asked for an interview. It was agreed that they would meet for lunch at a named restaurant the following day. Captain Tubridy turned up for the, quote, interview, unquote. And the, quote, restaurant, unquote, was in fact a soda fountain. Just a few questions in, and Tubridy had the two ladies rumbled. He got up and left promptly. The two ladies were furious. They were determined on revenge, and I'm told that Ethel was the leader of the pack. They went to the stables at Madison Square Garden that night, and this is what they did. They painted the horse green. So we ended up with a horse of a different color. Now, it's not recorded whether or not the horse competed the following day or managed to get the color off, but this story comes directly from Ethel's daughter, Courtney Kennedy Hill, and she was Dot's goddaughter. Fortunately, Captain Michael Tubridy from Moore Street, Kilrush, had a strong sense of humor. The miscreants came to him, owned up, and apologized. Not only was the apology graciously accepted, but a strong friendship was established, which led to 1st of June, 1950. And all this happened within the space of less than a year. And here are the details, a newspaper report. The wedding took place yesterday in St. John the Baptist Church, Clontarf, of Captain Michael G. Tubridy of the Army Jumping Team, son of the late Mr. P.F. Tubridy and the late Mrs. Tubridy Kilrush, and Miss Dorothy Lawler, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. W. Lawler, Notre Dame, Clontarf, Dublin. The ceremony was conducted by Reverend D. Campbell. The bride was given away by her father. She wore a gown of ivory satin with a tulle veil and a matching ivory satin headdress. She carried a bouquet of red roses. The bridesmaids were Miss Elizabeth Lawler, sister of the bride, and Miss Elsie Tubridy, sister of the bridegroom. They wore duck-egg blue taffeta frocks with matching Dutch bonnets and carried bouquets of yellow carnations. The train bearer was the bride's niece, Miss L. Lawler, who wore a full-length white net frock with a matching Dutch bonnet and carried a posy of red carnations. Mr. W. Tubridy was best man to his brother, and Mr. L. Lawler and Mrs. D. Lawler were groomsmen. After a reception held by the bride's mother at Portmarnock Country Club, Captain and Mrs. Tubridy left for Paris. And here was the next wedding. In the same month, Ethel, the best pal, married Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy on June the 17th, 1950. And here we see the two firm friends with Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy. And here is 1951, a proud moment for Aherlow. Captain Michael Tubridy and his wife with Aherlow, on which he rode to victory in the West Point Challenge Trophy in Madison Square Gardens in New York on Friday. After he died, his widow was presented with a number of portraits, and of them, I think this is one of the finest that you just simply hear. It would seem to have been modeled on something like what I have to the left, and you see the portrait to the right. And now we start coming to the Kennedy family. And there you see Dorothy Tubridy sitting with John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And much of what comes is from an interview that she gave with Joseph O'Connor, the brother of Sinead, in August the 8th, 1966. After she was widowed, she was invited to spend a fair bit of time with Ethel. And we moved then now to just 1960. When the president, Senator Kennedy, then decided to run for the presidency, I went and stayed for 6 months in Virginia and campaigned. I'd mentioned now that West Virginia was the crucial primary for the Democratic nomination. Kennedy's win in this mainly Protestant state led to the withdrawal of the main opponent, Hubert Humphrey. I got various reactions, she said, when she was going door to door. You're Irish. What are you doing here? And all the others were, oh, he's the Catholic. I don't want to hear anything about that. And here we have 6 weeks campaigning in the JFA presidential campaign. Mrs. Dorothy Lawler with daughter Anya, photographed when they returned from the United States after spending 6 weeks in Washington campaigning for the late President Kennedy, as it was at that time. So she was invited to the inauguration, and Ib Jorgensen created 3 gowns for the presidential inauguration. And here is a handwritten letter from the Oval Office to Anya Tubridy, aged 8. And I'll read the details here. It's dated the 13th of March, 1962. Dear Anya, many thanks for your nice letter and your beautiful picture of my beautiful picture of the house in Florida. I had forgotten that drawing, and it brought back to me, and you can tell your mother all kinds of happy memories to her also. Come to America soon and bring your mummy. Everybody here misses you both. Affectionately, John Kennedy. On the postmarked date, JFK made a major speech in the White House about the Alliance for Progress, an entity for economic progress in the Southern Hemisphere. So the president took the time off to write to that letter to an 8-year-old girl. I think it's amazing. So here we have Dorothy with Eunice Kennedy Shriver. Eunice was hugely involved in the Special Olympics. Here we have her with Courtney Kennedy Hill, who was her goddaughter, and Sidney Lawford McKelvey. So now, again, we're still talking about the White House years. She said, I said very timidly to the president, how nice it would be if our ambassador could see him alone, because it would give an opportunity, if there was any very important thing about Ireland, that he could even mention to him then. I said also, I think Ambassador Kiernan would really love to see you alone, even while he's just presenting the Shamrock. He just nodded, yes, yes. So I think that after you received the ambassador on his own, for a short time afterwards, every St. Patrick's Day was another indication of the thoughtful person he was. So everybody was very happy about that. And I know, as we're in the presence of a former ambassador, that getting FaceTime with the President of the United States alone is worth its weight in gold. And here we come to the Waterford Crystal Bowl of Shamrock being presented by the ambassador to JFK. I might mention that after she was widowed, Joe McGrath gave a job to her as sales representative for Waterford Crystal, which he also owned. And she was also sales representative for Donegal Carpets. So here's a recent thing. When Leo Varadkar presented Donald Trump with a bowl of Shamrock on St. Patrick's Day earlier this year, he was following in the footsteps of Dorothy Tubridy, who inaugurated the practice in the White House in 1961, when she presented Jack Kennedy with the national symbol in a Waterford glass bowl. She was brand ambassador for the crystal manufacturer. According to the family law, JFK accepted the bowl of Shamrock engraved with the Kennedy crest and went from that and went and put it on a side table. The feisty family friend remonstrated with him, and he put it back on the presidential desk, presented by Queen Victoria, and left it there for the rest of St. Patrick's Day. Again, continuing with our interview with Joseph O'Connor, because this was before he came to Ireland, I said that I was going to persecute him until he did come to Ireland. And when he decided to do so, I was there in Washington, she means. His secretary phoned me to come to the White House, that he wanted to see me. Everybody was wondering what it was, because everybody was always very excited when they were invited to the White House, especially unofficially. So when I got there, he said, I want you to be the first to know that I'm coming to Ireland. She says here, originally, he had only decided to stay in Dublin. And again, the length of time, we have an ambassador here who confirmed that, the length of time that the president says stays in the country sets its ranking worldwide. You see, time was very precious. I felt he should see more of the country and spread himself. It was decided then that he would go by helicopter to the south and the west. And jump forward to when he was leaving Ireland. I remember I said to him, are you glad you came? And he said, these were the happiest 3 days I've ever spent in my life. Here is the official invitation that came when it was known that he was willing to go. And that would have be president to president. I have the honor, therefore, to extend to you and Mrs. Kennedy, on my own behalf and on behalf of the government and people of Ireland, a most cordial invitation to our guests, to be our guests and to pass with us such time as is available to you on a state visit to our country. March 63, signed by M. de Valera, who was then president. A letter then goes to Dot from the president. Dear Dot, many thanks for your letter. Ken O'Donnell and several others will be over there early in May to advance the trip to Ireland, and I have told them to be in touch with you. As things stand now, we plan to arrive in Ireland on Wednesday, June 26th, and stay until at least Friday. I hope it can be made as pleasant as possible and not a lot of heavy activities. You may be sure that you will be featured prominently in all presidential functions. And here is a note from, of the entourage that I took from a newspaper. President Kennedy's entourage on his Irish visit included 4 glamorous women. His 2 sisters, Jean and Eunice, who had campaigned for him during the presidential election, Princess Lee Radziwill, First Lady Jackie Kennedy's sister, and close family friend, Dorothy Tubridy. Now, the Dublin opinion, we really miss it terribly. It was, it had as a strapline, humor is the safety valve of a nation. And here you can see Kennedy being visited or going into a state reception, and in the foreground, a wife is saying to the guest, and if you get to talk to him, will you keep your big mouth shut about the evils of emigration? And strange, the speech that was made when the Maid of Erin was unveiled, Father Clancy from Kilrush was giving out about the evils of emigration. I think they were really talking about the evils when the emigrants returned. This was the program for Galway. Visit to Galway of John F. Kennedy, President of the United States of America. Ceremonies at Ayr Square, June 29th, 1963, and it shows the various things that people had to do where they were guests. And in June the 29th, 1963, where was Brian Comerford? That's my photograph. Taken. I had the good luck to have a vantage point at the Great Southern Hotel, and here you can see it blowing up a little, and you can see the president looking to the people on his left. Again, I can remember distinctly one of the speeches that he made, and he was most fulsome. And what he said, if memory serves me rightly, because I had an LP with his speeches, was if you happen to be in Washington, go to the White House, go up to the front gate, say that you're Paddy and Mrs. Murphy, and that you want to see the president. And I said to myself, what happens if everybody accepts that? So here is the, what it reads here is, I hope you will come and see us. These were the actual words. A cartoonist imagines the scene where the president's new Irish friends to land at the White House. So here's Dorothy with John Kennedy Jr. And here, later on, is a letter that he wrote to her in September 19th, 1988. And I wanted to thank you for your efforts on behalf of the General Post Office of Ireland in regard to the stamp and commemoration. It sounds like a grand idea, and I would have gone if I could. This was an advertisement for, a still from an advertisement for PG Tips, featuring Dorothy Tubridy, who tells viewers why PG Tips is her favorite tea. Post JFK work, JFK's sister, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, was one of the founders of the Special Olympics. Dorothy Tubridy was involved in the organization at all levels. A medal presented to her by Eunice Shriver is in the Epic Museum. She had an unacknowledged behind-the-scenes role in the Northern Ireland peace process due to her many connections. And I did at one point in the Trim exhibition notice that there was a photograph of her with just herself and President Clinton. She never took credit for her many achievements. So here we see public commemorations of the public, and this is 1992 in Kilrush. Thanks to the Gleasons for a still from a video. You can see the day that the Captain Michael Tubridy Memorial Park was dedicated. And in Trim Tourism Network have announced that their exhibition about Dot Tubridy, entitled Dear Dot, Trim, Ireland and the Kennedy Clan, will be extended to the end of October due to the phenomenal interest in the exhibition from visitors, locals, and now the Epic Museum, Europe's leading tourist attraction 2019. It will be the last chance to see this offering in Trim before it heads off to the Epic Museum to be catalogued, digitalized, and ends up on exhibit at the museum in Dublin. And this was the poster for it, Dear Dot, Trim, Ireland and the Kennedy Clan, an exhibition of the life and times of Dot Tubridy. The Epic Museum, although there was a reference to display, the archives were donated on permanent loan. As the archive is not public, access via the museum accessed via the museum for consent by a grandchild of Dorothy Tubridy. Here is their resting place in Glasnevin. And interestingly, Courtney Kennedy, who knew her best of all, she being her godmother, never heard that there was a baby, Michael Anthony, who died age 9 days. And because what she said about her was she was always interested in you and never told about herself. So many thanks to Paddy Waldron, Lisa Walsh O'Sullivan, Conor Tubridy, who's here, thank you so much, Eric Lawler, John Donoghue of the Meath Chronicle, Paul and Vincent Gleason, Louise Kirk McGowan and Susan Kirkmangan, and Francis Prendergast of Kilrush Library.